Have you ever had a business idea or a concept that you knew and believed in your heart of hearts was what you were supposed to do with your life, only to be brought down by naysayers, people suggesting that it won't work, the economic climate is not right, there's not enough of a market to support the business on a regular basis? But you fought that doubt, you fought the doubters, and you set it up anyway. If this resonates with you, you're going to love this episode with Joe Richter, because this is what he had to overcome on his journey as co-founder of The Living Room, co-owner and head chef of The Living Room at Summerhill Estate, where he took in 2017 his old living room, his family lounge that he grew up in, and extended that into what was 5 years later voted in 2022 the best restaurant in the country. What a fabulous journey, fascinating to chat to him. I know you're going to enjoy this one if you like small business, if you like making dreams become a reality, and if you like food and sustainability. As always, like, share, subscribe, and enjoy. Joe Richter, thank you very much for being here. How are you today?
Yeah, it's my Monday, so wanting to start the week on a good note.
Nice. Why are you good? It's something that people have. It's like an automatic response. What's going on that's positive for you at the moment?
I think that the positive is always the focus. No? I mean, if we get too caught up in the negative part, our mindset has always been to progress and to kind of create a nice space around us and to put a focus on the positive, and that's why going at things with a positive mindset has always been important to myself and the people around me. Yeah. Nice.
Talking about yourself and the people around you, tell me about your personal background, your roots. How did you grow up?
So on paper, I'm German, but I grew up in Durbs from the age of 3. So I think at heart, I'm definitely more South African, more Durbanite than anything else. I grew up in the house that is now the venue of our business as well, which is the living room at Summerhill, where we cook and we also have a bit of accommodation that's a combination of the both. Yeah.
Lovely. I love that story in doing my research, how that transition from being a childhood home into something that maybe has realized a dream. Was that a dream of yours growing up?
The dream kind of materialized, through growing up, I guess. Going through school, like many people, I had dollar signs in my eyes, and I studied, and I wanted to, go into a more corporate life, or a life that, where the focus was really just on income.
What did you study?
I studied law.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 4 semesters of law, and then I studied 4 semesters of like a banking BCom statistics degree. And also 4 semesters of that, and it didn't work out, and I found myself more and more in the kitchen of the guest house at that stage, which is really informal, and then all of the things that I was exposed to in my past kind of started resonating with myself, and I all of a sudden realized, or kind of just crystallized out, that this is what I want to do. And then I left South Africa to start off my studies as a chef. Yeah.
Really? What resonated with you in your growing up?
So my family, or I was very privileged in the sense that we were exposed to a lot of travel, especially in Africa as well as in Europe, and there we were always on the local markets, finding out, and buying produce there, whether it was in Italy or in Madagascar, and a lot of those holidays were all very nature focused as well. So in Madagascar, we'd, for instance, walk through the forest, and then all of a sudden there'd be a vanilla a plantation or a cinnamon plantation, and really getting back to the roots on all of these things, and having that affiliation to what's growing and then goes to the market and then gets cooked into or made into something special is really something that inspired me from a really young age, really just understanding the provenance of it. And on the other side, my grandparents were retired on an old farm in Hungary, and were basically self-sustaining there. So they made their own wine, burnt their own eau de vie schnapses, slaughtered their own livestock.
Seriously? Yes, that's cool, eh?
And had a huge vegetable garden that they also took everything out of. So that, me spending most of my so the European summer with them, we saw a lot of these things happen, and for my gran to go into the garden, harvest a zucchini, and then get a couple of eggs and make an omelette with zucchini for us for lunch, for instance, with a nice salad, was something that was definitely also an inspiration in hindsight. Just really understanding where it came from and how something gets made out of something that you've grown or you've got an attachment to in some way or another.
How old were you during those Hungary holiday times?
That was about 9 to 13, 14, yeah.
So really formative years, if you think. Do you look back on those times with a degree of nostalgia?
100%.
Really, yeah.
It's some of my nicest childhood memories, and probably just because, obviously, I had a good relationship with the people there, but in hindsight, it's also just something that I've always been able to affiliate myself with, and something that has always just resonated positively inside me, I guess.
So you went to chefing school?
No.
So you went to Germany?
I did an apprenticeship.
Oh, so you went straight into an apprenticeship?
Straight into a 3-year French apprenticeship, just on the German side of the French border, and did a really classic 3-year apprenticeship in a restaurant.
And that was under a Michelin star?
Yeah. So it was a big restaurant with a setup that it was one kitchen with a really big classic brigade of 20 plus chefs. So we had an in-house butchery, patisserie that made all of the cakes and so on and so forth, and then a classical kind of French brigade system in the front. And this kitchen was basically servicing 2 different restaurants. So one that was doing more regional, seasonal cooking, and the one that had a Michelin star.
Okay. And at what point did you realize that, okay, this is what I want to do?
Before that. I think that came during studies.
Oh, really? Yeah? So whilst you were studying, you were finding that you had that calling, or that clarity, rather?
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that I've always really enjoyed. And then having the luck of being able to fail at 2 things before, and still have the backup to now move on to a 3rd thing, is obviously also something that's kind of come from a lot of privilege from having, that backup from a family side. And on the other side, maybe I just wasn't going at it with the right outlook and the right values.
Yeah. I think that's interesting that you use the word luck, the fact that you were lucky enough that you were able to attempt those 2 different things, and then still, one, maybe that gave you perspective of what it actually is that you wanted to do with your life, and 2, the fact that you had the opportunity to then have a 3rd crack at it.
That's
really.
it, yeah. I mean, whether financially or emotionally, people go into tertiary education under a lot of pressure. You're very young. Maybe to a certain extent also too young to make these really important decisions, and then to not only stop one course and then move on to a second, also stop that one and pretty much in the middle. Doesn't always really. Not all families are set up in a manner where that would have just been digested as well as my family kind of took it up.
Yes. Your family, your folks, do they encourage creativity for you to explore your passion? Because that's like completely on the opposite side. You've gone from law and like behind a desk about as corporate as one can get with your studies, to then the complete opposite, different hours, different lifestyle, creative.
Yeah, also, I don't know. I mean, look, I don't have any memories of I mean, when I said I wanted to chef, my mother told me I need to start making my mind up now, and I need to start focusing on something and also pulling through. And for me, it was clear that this is what I wanted to do, and in that regard, I don't really have too many negative discussions in the back of my mind regarding this whole thing, because it was just kind of, just the aim was going forward.
Yeah, I love that. You met your wife when you were there as well.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. She was working at the same restaurant that you were doing your apprenticeship.
No. So that was later on in my career. So I did my apprenticeship in the Black Forest in a really small village there. It had like 600 people strong village. And then from there, I needed the city again. So I moved to Berlin, where also I have a bit of family. And then in Berlin, I started working at a restaurant, which has 3 stars, and that's where Johan and I then met. Yeah.
Oh, lovely. And then from there, bring it back to South Africa. What happened? What was the decision that was made to then come back here?
I mean, for me, the decision was made when I decided to leave, that I'm coming back. So I never went to Europe with the ambition of staying in Europe forever.
Okay.
So I always wanted to come back, and I always wanted to come back to Durban, because I just thought that Durbs and its community and the city, from a schooling as well as from a societal point of view, has always given me, or has sculpted me into the human being that I am now, and has given me a lot of positive on the way. And I always wanted to kind of give back to a certain extent, and also try and give Durban a bit of a platform to showcase itself. And that's how, in a lot of thinking and training and trying, the concept that we now have was born.
What is that concept?
Well, it's local ingredients from local farmers, as close to organic as possible, really focusing on just right ethics and the right kind of moral compass, that everything's just done in a good way, and focusing on the cultural influences that Durban has, from African culture to Indian culture to European culture, just using produce that comes from these different cultures and turning it into dishes that we showcase on the daily. Yeah.
Fantastic. So the living room, when did you start? When did it start? When did you realize and put into action that this is your baby going forward?
So the official opening of the living room was in August 17.
2017.
Yeah, August 17.
Mm.
And we had trialed a couple of ideas previously to that, where we for instance, we tried a sharing concept, and then we tried reinventing more classic kind of Durban dishes and serving that, but that also didn't work out because it just felt a bit cheesy and didn't really materialize the way that we wanted. And then after about six months of trying, then the living room was opened, and in those 6 months we obviously invited a couple of guests to soft openings and the likes, and everyone was pretty convinced that we were going to fail.
Really?
Yeah. Now everyone said, everyone was very skeptical about Durban understanding what we do, and didn't give anyone the credentials, especially from a local market point of view, that this actually has a place in the Durban market.
When you say everyone, is that your close circle, friends and family, public?
No, I think from friends and family, I think everyone always believed in us, to be honest. But it was more from a public perceptional point of view, where everyone was just convinced that the only reason fine dining works in SA is if you've got a big influx of foreign nationals to kind of fall back on, because South Africans as such aren't into fine dining. with that also being a bit of a tricky term. But yeah, especially like multi-course degustation menus, and obviously a lot of time goes into that. The produce that we source also comes at a price point, so the price of these menus is also, to come have dinner with us is definitely not a cheap experience. But I think if you understand the whole spectrum that we're working with, and you understand, the intellectual property that goes into it, the skill that goes into it, the time that the whole team of now nearly 20 people puts into basically each dish, then you also understand where the price point kind of fits in.
Yeah, and I think the key word there for me, having come to your restaurant a few times, is experience. I think when we go, every time that Lisa and I have been there, it has been exactly that. It's an experience. It's not just you being served a meal and then I hope you enjoyed your meal and then off you go, see you next time. The attention to detail, the array of flavors, the aromas, the service, everything, the pairing. So that takes time and it costs money and you pay for an experience. And you get, I think, more than enough value, personally. And obviously a lot of other people feel the same way because you're still going strong.
Yeah, no, very much so. And there's no looking back. We've, I think, established ourselves quite nicely on the local market, and still to date, I think 85-90% of our core clientele are locals. We're happy that things have materialized in such a positive way.
So, the lovely story about the living room is it actually was your living room growing up?
Yeah.
To give some context to people that come and visit the restaurant?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think, one of the reasons why there's also so much heart involved. And, everyone from our front of house team to the people in the kitchen are really vested in what we do. And there's a lot of heart in everything that, everyone contributes. And I think that also makes the space that we have authentic.
Yeah. What does food mean to you, Joe? If you had to try and summarize it, there's obviously a deep connection to it. What about food?
I mean, on the one side, it's something that has, very primal, connotations, because it's sustenance to us. It's what we need to thrive and survive. And on the other hand, it's also a cultural medium, which I think portrays culture and society in a very relaxed and easy way. I think if you want to understand someone from a different culture and you enjoy a meal with them from that culture in specific, the understanding that you generate for one another automatically broadens by the way it's prepared, by the way, by the products that you use, to the way that it's eaten, and you've automatically got a better understanding for one another.
So it's connection.
100%, yeah.
It's about connecting with people through food.
That's exactly it.
I love that. You mentioned being eco-friendly, cognizant of the environment, and also there's a drive to get as much of the ingredients sourced not only locally but from your back garden, quite literally.
Yeah, this season has been a little bit tricky in that regard because we're busy renovating the whole vegetable garden, and that's why we haven't harvested quite as much out of our own produce in the last 6 months as we have done previously. But our aim has always been to do about 50% of what we serve comes directly from our garden. Yeah. 50%. 50%.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, before, look, all of the eggs that we used for our pastry came out of from our own chickens. Yeah, and about 50% of all of the vegetable produce, and most of that being indigenous or local staples that are, adapted to the climate, environment, and then kind of make it a little bit easier to grow in an organic manner as well.
So I love this because it's you have to be so forward thinking in the sense that you're cooking. I'd imagine the ingredients are seasonal, certain ingredients So there's certain things that appear on the menu at certain times of the year.
Yeah.
You're harvesting something maybe with the intention or the plan to have something on the menu in a few months' time.
Yeah, definitely.
Really? How far in advance are you thinking in terms of your menu?
Excuse me. I think, there isn't really any rationale behind it, because seasonality, especially in a organic or permaculture spectrum, is very, very difficult, because one season you've got great cauliflower, the next season you've got absolutely awful cauliflower, just as an example. So, and that's also the reason why we don't really have any signature dishes, because every year the produce comes in different constellations, and we then put it together in the constellations that make the most sense to us.
Yeah.
And in summer, we get a lot of tropical fruit, we get a lot of indigenous fruit in, and we try and just prolong and add to their flavor and lifespan by preserving them in different manners. And then we also do a lot of fermenting as well, that also helps in preserving and adding depth and flavor.
Okay. There's a lovely Japanese philosophy called wabi-sabi, which is accepting the imperfection and impermanence of everything. And I love that there's sort of elements of that with how you construct your menus, accepting the impermanence of nature, that your cauliflower this year is not going to be the same as next year. And that forces you to explore different avenues.
Look, I mean, it's a very so you have a lot of restaurants in a more generic spectrum that basically cook more or less, for the lack of a better phrase, out of catalogs. No? So you've got pages and pages of produce that you can choose from, the majority of it throughout the year, no? and with that you can do very consistent meals and have a very consistent menu, but cooking like that isn't for everyone, and also can lack a little bit of heart. And I think if you really want to show a space and time and where in what you're doing and where you are, you need to just roll with the punches and cook seasonally, with the ambition of trying to tickle the most out of the produce that you get in.
Yeah, there was a particular dish that stands out to me when we came on like 28th of May. It was around Lisa's birthday. Okay. And so that was one of her gifts for her birthday, was to come to the living room. And there was a pumpkin dish that stood out to me. And there was a lot of pumpkin on the menu when we were there. I can't remember what it was, but I remember saying to her, and she agreed the same way, it was autumn. It was related to autumn, if I'm not mistaken. And you could almost taste it. You could taste the earthiness and the flavor and the colors and the different textures. And it's amazing, and that's what I mean by experience, is that somehow you've been able to appeal to a variety of senses, all with one meal. There's a feeling that gets attached to the meal, the way that it's presented, the feel on your mouth, the mouth feel, the flavor, obviously. And I think that's a testament to what you're saying about having to adapt, having to cook and to present food that is basically what gets presented to you. And I mean, that must make your job, one, very challenging, but two, very exciting. It must never get boring.
Well, that's exactly it, and the difficulty, when we were smaller, and I was basically involved in every dish from prep to serving, it was a little bit different, because, with the set of skills that I've acquired over the years, there's not too many situations that we currently encounter that I'm not too, confident in dealing, or that I'm not confident in dealing with.
Yeah.
But to groom a team into a position where they also have all of these skills, and they know how to react, they know how to treat, vegetable, meat, whatever it is, and reinvent and rethink and create something delicious with it, obviously is a completely separate challenge. And that's something that I'm very proud of, that my kitchen team really just delivers awesome performances day in, day out, and without the consistency that they and the accuracy that they work with, it would make my job a lot more difficult.
Yeah, we were chatting off air about scaling and economies of scale and scaling of skills, really. One of the biggest challenges that a person in the fitness industry will face is to scale. I have a particular way of training people, how I like to train people, my philosophies on training, and people want to therefore train with me, not the person underneath or whatever the case might be. And then to be able to get somebody else on board to then groom them up, teach them my ways, but at the same time allow them to express themselves is something that's quite challenging. And I would imagine it to be when I do eventually get there. But how was that process for you?
Well, so when we started off the team, I think we had, including myself, I think we started off with 2 qualified chefs. So it was just myself and one other person. And in front of house, I think it was 2 or 3, Johanna, my mother, and I think Lungelo was there at that time already as well. But yeah, it was the team was very small, and we had everything in control there. And then we won our first award, which was coming in number 13 on the Eat Out Top 20 in 2019. And then, business really started flourishing, and we obviously had to grow the team, and that was a pretty gradual process. And then COVID came, and then we had to basically start from zero again. And then in 2022, we won this huge award that we came in as best restaurant in the country from Eat Out. And that obviously, we had to grow up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And we had to grow the team pretty quickly. And luckily, we were already in that transitional process coming out of COVID, that we were getting a lot more busy. And luckily, we had a core team that we could kind of build the team on. And the further luck that we had was that we just were able to get the right people into the new team. And now, from a service as well as a kitchen point of view, I mean, including Johanna and myself, Johanna is 33, I'm 34. We have an average age of just under 24 for the whole team. So it's like everyone's very, very young.
Yeah.
Very, very young. And we just do training on the daily. So it's, a lot of dialogue. We communicate on eye level, and then training. That's the only way that we've been able to get it done, with the fact that everyone's just also really dedicated to the cause.
So to take a step back for a second, when the living room started or opened in 2017, 5 years later, #1 restaurant in the country.
Yeah.
If somebody had said to you, tapped you on the leg, Joe, when you start this restaurant that you're about to open up in 2017, in 5 years' time, best restaurant in the country, would you say yes? Would you say I believe you?
Look, I think I probably would have said no, but also that maybe that's also just in my nature, that I've definitely been more humble and on the rooted side.
Yeah.
On the other hand, when Johanna and I decided to come down and kind of drafted up our plans, in our 5-year plan, that was the aim.
Seriously?
That was the aim, is to be, in 5 years, to definitely be in that top segment of restaurants locally. But we also knew, that it's such a slippery slope, because what we do is pretty out there,
Yeah.
And there's not too many guys in the SA spectrum that cook the same way or view things the same way that we do. So, I mean, if the judging panel and wouldn't have understood that. It also could have backfired on us, I think. But yeah, there's no reason to speculate anymore.
Yeah.
I think everything's been validated.
It's worked out pretty well so far.
Yeah.
How do they score these things? Because, yeah, I mean, how do they whittle it down from X amount of restaurants to then make a decision on the living room is the best restaurant in the country?
Yeah, so I think, you've got 1,000 different ways of judging and 1,000 different panels that judge. But I think the crux is basically the same. That's that people come to the restaurant, dine at the restaurant, and then score it. And the score usually has ambience in it, which is a minor part, food being the bulk part, and then service and sommeliering also still being larger portions in that whole equation. And that basically gets judged by these expert judges, and then they evaluate the scores, and who's got the highest score is basically the person or the restaurant that then comes in as best restaurant. So I think in Eat Out's case, it was 90 to 100 points are 3 stars, and the person out of these restaurants that are in that category that has the highest mark obviously takes the best restaurant award.
Okay, so a 3-star restaurant as far as that Eat Out award is concerned.
That's it.
You're getting 90% minimum.
Plus, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that's kind of the way it is. I mean, sometimes it's anonymous, sometimes it's not anonymous. Either way, I think the most important thing is that it's consistent and that everyone goes in with the same kind of chances. No?
Yeah. What was that moment like? You head down to the Cape, and
now Jan and I were just looking at pictures of that yesterday, funnily, because usually we don't get a lot of time or don't take a lot of time for any nostalgia. Yeah, it was crazy, hey? I mean, we just got quite a big rap on the knuckles from another gourmet guide, and they only gave us 1 plate out of 3, and putting us into a position that we weren't happy with because we just didn't think that really reflected what we did, and also just learned from technical and. But yeah, anyway, we weren't happy with that.
When you say 1 plate out of 3, what does that mean?
That's just what we got. It's just another judging system.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we went there with very high expectations, and then really came out of it quite put in our place again. And so going into Eat Out, we weren't very positive because we thought that we just need to put a lot more time into getting our message across, because the product is right, but maybe the way that we conveying our story isn't right, or maybe it just needs a little bit more time. So we actually went there saying, okay, look, if we get 3 stars, that would be fantastic. That's our personal aim, and that's where we want to be in the top 5. But even if we only get 2, we'll just carry on working at it, and within time, people will understand. So then when we got 3 stars, for us, it was really, okay, this is it. We can party now. We can tick that box. And then fucking hell, it was the way it is. And all of a sudden, we got called. The chief judge, Abigail Donnelly, was reading out who the best restaurant award was going to, and then I remember her saying, this restaurant also makes its own plates from locally sourced clay, and I'm like, no one else does that besides us. And then it kind of started, the penny dropped, and Johanna and I were obviously ecstatic. Yeah, overwhelmed, I think, is probably really the right way of saying it, because we just were not by any measure expecting that. Not because we didn't think that we were good enough, but rather because we didn't think that, everything was, that the stars had aligned yet.
Yeah. And what has it been post that award? Do you have a wider variety of guests? Are people traveling from different parts of the country to come and visit the restaurant? What type of emphasis does that have on business, for example?
Hugely.
Really?
Yeah, and we from day one have been blessed with our customers and guests, and in a sense that we really have lovely people that visit us and also want to engage with it. And that, especially at the beginning of the award, that kind of did a bit of a shift, and not a huge shift, but we had a couple of people that were making their way up to us with more of a glitz and glam attitude than coming out for a nice meal. And and there were a couple of negative experiences that we had there. You can read them up on Google. But the bulk of people that visit us are really, really happy and also proud of what we do and of how we do it. There's no looking back.
So with things being so overwhelmingly positive, how do you... Yeah?
I think yes, we rode this wave of positivity, but in the same, breath, we also had to grow up really, really quickly, because till now we are under such huge pressure to deliver every day, because our head's on the block, every day.
You're at the top now.
And it's a different ball game. I mean, I remember from the previous Eat Out awards that we were at, the head chef in the restaurant that were number one that previous year to those awards, excuse me, said, guys, being number one was great, but I'm also glad that we're not number one this year, because it was a hell of a tough. Look, irrespective of what happens going forward, we'll take all accolades and awards that verify what we do. But it's been a really, really tough year.
Has it?
We've had to work unbelievably hard, and the young team, also from a psychological point of view, had to deal with so much pressure, and so much input from outside, that if we weren't confident in what we were doing and how we're doing it, and that it's the right thing, the way that we're doing it, I think it would have made the situation very difficult.
Really?
Yeah.
And how's your young team adapted to the new
Everyone's
label?
Excelled, yeah. Yeah, everyone's excelled. I mean, we've intensified, our training, and really made sure that everyone's, in it. But we're blessed. I mean, it's all local Durbanites. Akona, my sous chef, she's from the Eastern Cape. But otherwise, it's from PMB to the Durban outskirts, and a lot of Zulu guys, a couple of people from other cultures, and everyone's just bought into what we do, and I think that really is the foundation, that everyone sees it as a team effort.
How are you managing family time and work time? Because being in the restaurant game, as you know, very time intensive, very labor intensive. You're working long hours. How have you managed that?
So, look, our kids are unbelievable. They deal with all of this so well, and obviously we live in a multi-generational household. So my mother and Johanna and I and our kids all live in the same house, and that's great. My sister lives on a neighboring property with her son, so there's a lot of family back up there. And obviously we've got Winnie, who also played a huge role in my upbringing, who also looks after the kids on a daily. Having that structure in place and being able to wholeheartedly trust and rely on people in the raising of our kids is obviously the biggest luxury that we have.
Yeah. What has South Africa taught you? There's been something, you've come back here when you've had an opportunity to go and to be in Michelin star restaurants overseas. It sounds cliched, but it really is just looking forward. No? There's things along the line that don't go according to plan. There's things that you're not happy with, but you still need to just take that up into your stride and just make a plan and carry on. And I think you see that even with all of the problems that we've had in Durbs, from the riots and the floods. Yes, there's people that have said, okay, enough is enough, and we need to go, or we need to
find different alternatives for our life. But the bulk of the people are kind of, try and make the best out of the situation that's there. And I think that's really, for me, a very South African outlook.
Yeah, I think so too. Is there a particular dish, ingredient that you love to showcase or to hero on a regular basis? Do you have a favorite? Personally.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, I think indigenous ingredients play a huge role for me personally, and also in our cooking, because there's just so much knowledge there that's has been forgotten or is in the process of being forgotten, because no one gives us a platform anymore. And forage ingredients play a huge role in what we do, and it's something that we also go out and do ourselves. So I think foraged mushrooms are something that I personally really enjoy, because it's time out there, mostly just after the rain, and everything's just like lush and green, and then you've got all these mushrooms popping up that we've used then throughout the year basically. So
it's something that again appeals. It's an experience and it's an adventure, to go out and to, the smell of the clean air after a rain, the wetness on the leaves, and
it's something very intrinsic, and it's also maybe that a lot of people don't have any affiliation with anymore. That it's so important and so nice to showcase.
Yeah. I'm going Japanese at the moment because I've read 2 Japanese books of late, and there's a wonderful concept called forest bathing, and it's a Japanese concept directly translated. It's called forest bathing in English, and it's basically being out in nature. So being mindful, not having a particular place to go to, not walking for the sake of getting to a destination, walking and being outside for the sake of being outside, to pay attention to the different shades of green, for example, now that we're in spring, the different colors in the flowers, the smell after the rain. And it's something that you're absolutely right, people are missing. And they've done extensive research on it now, where it's so much better for your health to be outside and to be in nature. They've done studies where people who in hospital, if they have a window, if their bed is by a window and they can see outside, they actually recover faster than people that don't have a window seat, for the want of a better word.
I mean, when we do our foraging as a team, the day before, because we obviously have to now meet an hour earlier to an already really, really long day. And so the day before, everyone's already like, really, do we have to do this? Or, can't you just go with the interns? And, there's always a lot of negotiating and bartering then. But essentially, when we're out there and when everyone comes back, it's like, you can just see that it's just, everyone's just a lot more at ease. It's just a nice feeling just to be out there and also have that affiliation to your immediate surrounds, because all of our foraging basically takes place in Cowie's Hill. So it's like a radius of like 5 Ks. That, like, at the moment, mulberry season is going, so we've harvested about 20 kilos of mulberries just in our little neighborhood. And all of our mushrooms are foraged in our neighborhood. We've got a couple of conservancy pockets that we go to. Yeah, and that's basically that,
Yeah, see. That is so cool, eh? It is so cool.
Eating the suburb,
Yeah. It's amazing that there's this sort of really local, humble feel to everything that you seem to be doing there at the living room, and yet how it's been so appealing to so many people now, and now obviously being recognized since 2019, but more so in 2022. You mentioned earlier you guys start already early enough. What does a standard day look like for the magicians in the kitchen?
No, I mean, we work hard. I think we'll easily have a 60-hour week. Yeah. So I think that's probably a good medium to kind of use.
60-hour week.
Yeah.
Are you open Monday to Sunday?
No, so we open Tuesday to Saturday, and Saturdays we also open for lunch, otherwise only dinner. And it's 5 days, and also, excuse me, with mental health and all of the pressure that's kind of come through, and obviously also we live in a day and age where to find good staff in hospitality is becoming increasingly difficult. So we also wanted to create a nice, environment and a nice place of work for our team. So that's why we also said, we're going to close Sunday, so everyone has one day at least with their family, and has a day off with other people, irrespective of people working in the industry. So we close Sunday, Monday every week. Yeah.
Really? Speak to me about burnout. Have you ever been burnt out with working hours like that?
Probably.
Yeah.
But it's just. I don't know. Probably not. I think if I would have really had a serious burnout, I think I would have noticed it. But
yes.
No, there's been moments where it's definitely been tough. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you speak about the toughness of 2023 post the award in terms of the pressure, that you're in the spotlight now. How do you deal personally with when there's any constructive criticism or feedback that is maybe not, I wouldn't say not to your liking, but negative? How do you deal with criticism like that?
Look, everything that we do is a part of us. Right?
Yes.
So there's a very, very intimate relationship that we have with our profession. So criticism regarding that is always something very deeply personal, irrespective of whether it's constructive or not. Evaluating that obviously always plays a huge role, because the only aim that we have, we went an interview a couple of weeks back, and it was from a more corporate-led kind of vantage point, and we were asked, what's our long-term strategy? And I said, we've got 2 kids, we've got this growing business, and time just goes. We don't have a lot of time to strategize. The only thing that we really want to do is make sure that every day we improve a little bit, and that's the only strategy and the only aim that we really have. And and bringing that back to the criticism, it's the same kind of mindset. You can see if someone just didn't go visit us with the right mentality, and on the other hand, we're all human. There's a lot of room for human error as well, which probably happens on the daily, if we're honest with each other.
Absolutely, it does.
And that's just something that either we always want to improve on, but you just also kind of need to take into your stride, And this, to a certain extent, we always just looking at number one spots, and in a sector that we're in, to really crystallize number one, as stoked as I am about the award, is a hell of a difficult, because there's just so many people out there doing so many different things, and still, people come there with a certain kind of perception of what, to them personally, it means to dine at the best restaurant in the country.
Yes.
And that's just where everyone differs.
It's very subjective.
100%.
Yeah. I think it's a healthy approach to take, because similar to training, it's personal training, it's a personal service. So it is a hard thing to take. If somebody's got a complaint or criticism, easier if it's done in a constructive way and with an engagement to try and move forward and for everybody to get better, to open up that dialogue. But it's something that it's uncomfortable, man. It cuts deep sometimes.
Yeah, and sometimes it just also takes time to digest it, and to evaluate it. But I also think, we all need to try and also evaluate what for ourselves is constructive feedback and what isn't. And if it isn't constructive, the only thing to do is just blend it out. There's unfortunately also a lot of people out there that don't go about it with the right kind of attitude, and that also doesn't make anyone's life easier.
No, only makes everybody's life difficult. It doesn't even make their life easier.
That's it.
It makes everybody's life more difficult.
But luckily, that's the vast minority. That's why I don't even want to platform it, to be honest.
No, exactly. But I think we tend to give so much energy to the very small, the 1% that's
100%.
negative, instead of embracing and cherishing the 99%.
That's it.
And we're all guilty of that. I think it's just the human condition, right?
On the other hand, for me personally, from a stimulation point of view, I work better and I put more effort in if I hear something negative than if I'm just thriving with positive. You know?
Yeah, I'm the same. Sometimes somebody might pass a comment, or I don't know, I'll hear somebody's doing something different to me somewhere else, and as cuck as it is, it makes me like a little bit grumpy in like the very short term, like that day.
Exactly like that.
And then, but by the end of the day, I'm like, okay, I need to go and fucking pull my socks up.
Just graft.
Yeah.
You know? And that's exactly it.
And but it's, so I think it's constructive in that way. If you ruminate and you let it get you down, then it becomes a very destructive thing.
Yeah.
But I think every now and again, just a little bit of a kick up the arse is probably good. Yeah, because that's what drives innovation, you know.
I agree.
What's next? Obviously, no long-term plans, but what's on the immediate horizon? What are you looking forward to for the rest of the year?
So, progression is always important to us, and also harnessing the momentum that we have at the moment is very important to us. So what we've done is, at the moment, we're really just working on the next step of our living room experience, which is slowly starting to take shape. We've got this beautiful new space that we've opened up, which is like a lounge, where guests can come in like 30 minutes, an hour earlier, have an aperitif, glass of bubbles or a cocktail before they go and are seated at their table. And then by beginning to mid of next year, we will have redone our whole vegetable garden into tunnels and have a path that basically goes a full loop from our lounge through the vegetable garden into the restaurant. So you can really visualize and get input of exactly what's going on the premises, and also peace of mind that it's not just talk.
Yes.
That it's tangible, it's real, it's there.
So myself as the guest, I would be allowed to and encouraged to walk through to go and see what's going on in the background.
Exactly it,
I love that.
So you can really have a complete insight into the full spectrum of what we're going. So we've got what we're doing. So the vegetable garden is going to be there. Chicken coop is going to be rebuilt as well, with enough chickens for us to sustain the living room. And then right at the end, we're also going to put a tilapia pond in. So we can also harvest our own tilapia, because the ocean is a topic that is very close to my heart and our heart. So we very much on a conservational path and stance there, where we don't serve anything out the ocean, because of the obvious reasons that just the ocean's on a dire state and there's no regulation of real fisheries, and et cetera. So that's why we said we don't do any fish that comes from the ocean. That means only sweetwater fish. So at the moment we're using trout, which come from the Drakensberg, and then that will be another avenue to have fish on our menus if we farm it ourselves in our tilapia pond.
Nice. Do you eat fish?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you eat fish then, like would you go and buy fish from another store? So moral stance, you don't eat any fish that hasn't been...
If I go spearfishing, yes. If I catch it myself, yes. Otherwise, I don't want to be part of that machine at all.
Really?
Yeah.
I think that's very good though, because there's a lot of people that take that stance and they say, oh, morally, I'm not a fan of how people are fishing for tuna, but when they've got a hankering for tuna, they'll head to their local fish store and then off they go. So it's quite impressive that you're able to take such a stance on it, that you,
this really comes. I grew up on the coastline here, from Cozy Bay to the former Transkei Wild Coast, is basically where I spent the majority of my time and as a child growing up, and so it's always been something close to my heart. Excuse me. And 6 years ago, I read an article that said that for the generation of my children, it'll be a completely abstract thought of eating a wild-caught fish coming from our oceans. For them, it'll be something that just doesn't occur anymore because there won't be any wild catch out there anymore, only aquacultured fish. And then, doing a bit of research into it, and obviously, as everything is in the day and age that we live in, information is also very polarized. But I drew from this side of the polarization. That's where my information has come from, and that's the one that I stand by at the moment.
Yeah.
Until things have changed in a constructive manner going forward.
What would you like for somebody to say? What would you like for them to get after coming to the living room?
I think it doesn't always have to be complicated.
Yeah.
So even though we put a hell of a lot of time into developing the dishes and getting them right on the day and into our service training, etc., the main thing for me going out, and the main thing that I think should be on the people that dine with us as agenda, is that they enjoy the evening out, the occasion out, the people that they're with. And if we can enhance that and add to that by what we're doing, because of the degree of professionalism that's behind that, then I'm super stoked. But the main thing for me is really for people to come in and just enjoy a night out. That's really the main focus that I have.
Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
Exactly. Getting there, the journey is tricky. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not simple to end up getting it simply. It's very complicated to get to simple.
And the more nuances it has, the more nuances you discover.
Yeah, exactly. There's another interesting study. I was chatting with, I had a guy, a forensic pathologist on 3 weeks ago. And he was saying in his profession of forensic pathology, the youngsters who knew the least were most confident of their diagnosis. And the longer that you were in forensic pathology, the more that you knew, the more you questioned and the more uncertain you were, which is quite an interesting reversal of what you think you would assume to be the case. So there's something that I took away from that.
Yeah, it makes sense completely.
Yeah. The more you go down that rabbit hole, the more you realize what you don't know. But in doing so, the more that you learn.
Yeah, and the more something that, from a peripheral vantage point seems really, really easy and simple, all of a sudden develops a depth, that is never ending, because it really just depends on how much you want to discover.
Yeah, exactly. Joe, thank you very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure. I've thoroughly enjoyed chatting to you, and each time I've thoroughly enjoyed coming and eating your delicious food. Where can people find you? Instagram, social media, websites, etc.
We've just redone our website. It's looking really, really nice. I think that's definitely a good place to start. And then, we're also on socials, predominantly Instagram.
What is the Instagram and I'll attach it in the show notes. What's the Instagram and the website?
The living room at Summerhill.
The living room.
And the website is summerhillkzn.com.
Okay, fantastic. I wish you well. I hope to see you in the living room at some stage in the near future.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Pleasure. Wait. Before you go. Did you enjoy that episode as much as I did hosting it? Please go on to Apple Podcasts or to Spotify, rate the show, follow the show, subscribe to the show, leave a comment and a review. Every little bit helps. The more reviews that the show gets, the more traction it's going to get, which means that the guests get better and better, the value gets better and better, and then we can continue to grow together and be better as a community. Thank you very much. Have a great day.